right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be pulling apart Charlton's 3-1 home defeat to Portsmouth, a team that has caused us so much pleasure over the years, but this season has caused us a lot of pain when you look at the Fratton Park disaster class of the scoring the late goal and that, and then today's performance, which was, I thought, quite a strange game.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I don't know what your thoughts were, but to me, it was just a game that we never really got going. It looked like in the first 30 seconds it was going to be a game that we were up for, and then from that moment it just dropped off, and I just thought we looked a bit of a shell of our normal selves.
I think we can definitely say there's been games this season where we've thoroughly enjoyed watching Charlton play. I think the desire, the effort we've put in has really sort of got the fans behind them in certain games where we've, like you said, we've sort of got off to a really quick start. Today we did get off to a decent start with that really, really early chance, but after that there was absolutely nothing in that game really. I didn't enjoy watching that one bit today. I'll be totally honest. It was one of those as well where we've come off the back of 3 obviously like really good results, and we said the other day like we need to keep trying to build that momentum. And we really, that game was a really big opportunity with, I know Portsmouth were littered with injuries. They had about 14 players named as like on the injury list. On top of that, they're under a big amount of pressure because albeit they've got a couple of games in hand, I think. But they are in a perilous position, or so are we, to be fair, in a way. But we managed to get that buffer up the league a little bit. So really a big opportunity for us to really sort of push against them. But today was just toothless, I thought.
Well, and I think with this Charlton side we've seen over the course of the season, we have some games where I generally, within the first kind of 15, 20 minutes, kind of feel, are we the Charlton that turns up that's going to put everything into it? And sometimes I just watch us and think this is one of those days.
We're not on it at all.
And we're really not on it. And when we're not on it, we can be so bad and so painful to watch. And it felt like one of those days where we lost every single battle. The midfield was being run riot. The press didn't really seem to work. There was a few little, I'd say throughout the whole performance, there was a few little glimpses that gave me some positivity. I don't think there was many players that would hold their head up high, but I think there was a few. I thought Dykes had a really good game again. I thought Fevrier, seeing him come in, especially with all the kind of stick of what we've had for signing him, I actually thought he looked quite dangerous and quite... To be honest, I know we said about missing like Tantan. A lot of people were... He reminded me quite similar. He's quite like stocky.
That's why it's been the one in, one out sort of straight swap, because they're very similar in terms of the way they play. You're right, he was a bright spark, and actually that was one positive to bring out of that game. And Dykes, like you said, says every game he's been in so far, he's put absolutely everything in, and really is looking a great signing. But the other thing I was going to highlight actually is coming up against these teams that are really scrapping at the bottom. Because I know we've got West Brom to come fairly soon. This game tonight just shows that if you aren't on it, you got these teams that are literally scrapping to stay in the league, which we are. We are still in that position, but we're not like right in that thick of it right now. But we may well be if we continue to sort of put in performances like we did tonight. But if you're not up to that battle from the get-go in these games against the teams that are fighting for their lives, then you will be outplayed. You will get outfought. You will get outbattled, and that's what we saw tonight. We saw a team that were just up for it more than us, and that's really unforgivable, especially at home after the run that we're on. So
looking at that, I think one of the interesting ones, obviously, is this starting lineup that. All the change that was in there was gotten out. I think they said about potentially has picked up a hamstring injury. Leeburn in. Leeburn looked really sharp before he'd kind of got injured, so I was quite excited of that as a move into the starting lineup. Albeit, I think we have also got that concern of the 2 big strikers up top and how they work. We've seen, I think, a game where it was quite effective, and I think it might have been the Leicester game. I can't remember. There's definitely a game where it felt like it was more effective, but the other games, it's felt like it's not quite the answer. And I felt tonight, once again, with that starting lineup, especially with those 2 big lads, they were kind of running into each other, flicking on but to no one.
I think when I saw those 2 up top on the team sheet, to me that comes across a bit negative. I think when you've got 2 big men up there, what it suggests is that you're going for the battle. You're going in for maybe Jones was thinking we're going to try and get down the wings and cross the ball in more, that sort of thing. But when you have two of the big men, you haven't got that other player up top to run off Dykes' flick-ons, for example, which is what he's so good at. I mean, the goal against Stoke was a flick-on into the path of Campbell, and we obviously end up scoring. There's the example of that working, the big man with a little flick onto the pace. And that's what we could have gone with from the get-go with someone like Kelman.
If you're going to play Leeburn and Dykes, I'm surprised you don't maybe see like a TC.
Yeah, someone else.
And I know we've said about this left wing back TC can't play there, but then do we talk about this whole system? I just
or you play TC in like a sort of, in behind the strikers, but so he can run around in and about. But yeah, I saw that team sheet come out, and the two up top did alarm me a little bit, especially at home.
Well, two up top, you've got holding mid who's a centre back. You've then got the three centre backs. You've got Doherty, who's a quite defensive mid. I mean, we are going to lump it up. And what I did feel Portsmouth did very well, and I think I'd seen something to say Messinio had been at the Stoke game.
Yeah.
And I think what they did extremely, extremely well was look at how we play, and just every aspect of our game kind of negated it, and they knew how they could maybe just whip the ball around a bit quicker, and that's what we struggle with in the centre of the pitch. I thought they know that we push up heavily on players, and as much as I thought the ref was absolutely diabolical, especially in that first half, they were playing the fouls quite clever, and you hope that you've got a ref who will maybe see that a bit more, but we also were incredibly naive to it. We have such a struggle sometimes of reading a game, seeing how it's going and adapting, and we just carried on doing the same old stupid stuff. We knew the ref was giving silly fouls. We knew the ref was going to give kind of yellow cards for ease, and then we were still kind of playing into that side of it.
You give the referee that opportunity to give those fouls away and to give away the yellow cards. And like obviously there were a few silly ones in there. One for Clark kicking the ball away. Like obviously the ref has to book him. He's got a choice. But there's other ones where it's like, why are you giving the referee the opportunity to do it?
To me, and I think to me, the turning point was when Leeburn, towards the beginning of the game, just put his arm out to go for a header. The guy went down and he gave Leeburn a yellow card. Now, at that point, we should realise, okay, we're not going to change the ref's approach to this game.
No.
So why did we then carry on giving away those silly fouls, giving them the opportunities? I just think our adaptability sometimes to those kind of situations is a bit poor, and it's just game management.
Or the other thing is like not giving the ref those opportunities to book us, or going a bit dirty against Portsmouth and giving him the opportunity to book their players, because they had one booking by like the 78th minute. I'm not sure. I think they might have had one throughout the whole game. We had 7 or 8, I think, by the end of the game. So, it's just those it's the game management. I think we struggle with at times, and really we could use those opportunities. Having a referee that's petulant, that's giving away sort of fouls willy-nilly, let's use that to our advantage if we can read the game and see that that's happening. It's frustrating actually, because really that's where someone needs to get a bit of a grip, and the leaders in the team, maybe Doherty's and Cody's, need to actually sort of try and influence the team a bit more in those scenarios. But it's difficult in game, I know, but it was a really frustrating watch.
No, it was. Well, let's move into that first half then. And for all of our kind of coming away feeling quite like bleh about the game, it started incredibly exciting, and I think in the first 30 seconds we had our best chance of the game. And it was I think Dykes had tried to flick it on. I'm not sure if he did get it or missed it, but came through to Harry Clark 1-on-1. Has to score, doesn't he?
I think he has to tuck it. I think the only thing you can say is keeper come off the line quite quick, and he's made himself quite big. So I think Clark did just put his foot through it down the middle.
Doesn't help as well. I saw in an interview he said he used to be a striker, and that's why he has the attacking prowess.
Well, to be fair, I was quite impressed that he was in that position to start with, because he's obviously come all the way from right wing back to get into the box, in the middle of the box at that time in the game. But yeah, you'd like to think that 9 times out of 10 he could have tucked that away. But luckily for Portsmouth, the keeper made a good save. And look, you're right, like that sort of got us off to a good start. It's like, okay, we're looking up for it.
Well, and I feel like you then it was actually quite an exciting watch at the beginning. I think the first kind of 10 to 15 minutes after that, we were kind of trading blows. They definitely looked more comfortable on the ball.
Mm.
We were doing our kind of lump it up, flick it on approach, but you could see that. Look, we've already proved there can be chances created from that. If we can stay solid, I don't feel like they were creating huge kind of levels of chances in those moments. Um,
Mm.
and it felt like it could be a quite exciting game, albeit I did feel the way they were pinging it round. Okay, is this going to be the kind of team we struggle against? Let's be honest, that all changed in the 22nd minute. Devlin with a lot of space, which we'll kind of go over later on as well, because it happened again in a very different kind of way.
Mm.
Shot from distance, and
Kaminski. Less said about it,
the comms when I was watching it were trying to say, oh, there's a lot of movement on the ball. Was there a little deflection?
Mm.
Look, he hit it quite sweetly, and yeah, I'm sure there's a bit of movement. That's pretty unforgivable to let that go. It's just a moment of madness.
Yeah, generally, like, keepers will always have a few clangers in their locker throughout a season, and that's one of his big ones this year. Hopefully, not too many more to come, but. Yeah, I don't think there's much excuse for it as well. He sort of, you could tell he knew straight away that it
I
was,
could even forgive with the amount of power and whip on it and all of that. Like, not whip, but the power that was on it, the movement on the ball. If he had saved it with his feet and it had gone back to a player, I could maybe look at that. But the fact it just went for it was just an out and out mistake.
I don't know, like, only he will know this, and probably people that were sat behind the goal might have got a bit of a better view of it. But I didn't know whether, because there was quite a few men in front of the ball at the time, like defence as well, like Charlton players, whether he was a bit blocked to see the actual strike, and it came to him quite late. He couldn't quite see where
We should never go on.
No, and I'm not excusing it, because at the end of the day, like, as a high level goalkeeper, you should be at least getting your body in the way of it. Like, to let it ping through your legs, it's like.
Well, I think the difficulty with what that goal was it did seem like, as I say, Portsmouth were going to be a slightly different team to what maybe we've seen before with some of their signings. They definitely look a more solid outfit, and I think you can see that from the form they've kind of picked up as of late. But for me, Charlton is very much built on us taking games to the latter parts of the games, maybe going in 1-0 up, but us going 1-0 down is a pretty bad omen when you look throughout the season.
We're not a side that if we go one down that you're looking at getting back into the game easily, because we don't create enough.
Well, and especially when we're off it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it felt. And I think as soon as that goal went in, a Portsmouth side who probably were having a tactic of, okay, we know what Charlton do. We still have to be a bit careful because they will defend really resolutely. It gave them that boost, and we just didn't handle it well. They started absolutely kind of dominating us, really pushing on us. I thought we looked really fragile, real lack of character in regards to something we've been really good at in recent weeks is that voice throughout the team, and I didn't feel there was much leadership.
You know, a funny one, actually, I read a comment after the game, and it kind of rang true, actually, is that you've been poor when Jones and Amari Bell looked pretty weak in a game. I think all the games we've seen where, like, we've criticised the whole back line, it's been games where we've been dominated, and today was unfortunately one of those games where we just were second best to pretty much everything. And also the fact that Portsmouth were able to sort of ping the ball quite quickly into the middle of the park, I felt they really took charge of that middle of the field. And I think that really did end up dominating us.
I think they did. The thing I can never get round with this Charlton team sometimes is, I don't know if it is just poor performances, good performances that allow this to happen or not, or whether it is the style of team we come up against. But there are some teams we play against where I feel we look so open.
Today was one of those.
And today was one of them, and I can't really put my finger on it, because there were other games where we look really solid and teams are struggling to break us down. I think the speed at which a ball is pushed around is probably our biggest one. I mean, if you start playing triangles around our midfield and playing it quite quickly, if you can break that midfield line, we then start to get a bit panicky.
Do you know what I think it is as well? Like, we have players that harry quite quick, so you've got like your Dohertys, Coventries, Cody, players like that, who are quite quick to close down. But if they're, like you just said, if they're playing the ball around with pace, you end up chasing shadows, and you end up with those gaps being opened up more and more. Carey then starts running around like a bit of a headless chicken trying to get the ball back. And it's all a bit panic stations at that point, and that's where the spaces start opening up. And we saw it today. Like, Devlin had the free roam of like the edge of the area, and like plenty of times today.
The space we were given all over.
Yeah, it's unbelievable in a way, because you need to be able to get on top of them quickly, because players like Devlin will ping shots from distance, and that's what happened. And obviously he's tucked two away.
Well, they kept pressing, but then in the 35th minute, what I would describe as quite controversial, because I feel in the game it felt like, yes, we're getting kind of a little bit dominated now, but if we can keep it at 1-0 going into half-time, we regroup, or we just kind of, the way these games in the Championship seem to ebb and flow, if we can just hold off from this kind of storm, there might be a route back into this game. The penalty decision. And I have to admit, look, I watch it and think it's absolutely ludicrous. Now, the thing I will sit there and say is it a handball to the letter of the law? Maybe. I don't know what the handball...
I think it is, because when you watch it back, and even in full time, to be fair, the ball has been stopped from getting into the box because it's hit his hand.
But my understanding with the rule is yes, but only if it's...
Unnatural position as well.
It's unnatural position. If you're getting the ball hit from you from 2 yards away, a natural position is to go like that. Now, if it's out like that, I completely understand it. But where it was, I don't understand that. And the other side of it is, I think it's only a handball in any way, shape, or form if it's going towards goal as well.
Yeah.
So it's either intentional or it's actually going towards goal.
I guess towards goal, or but I guess if it's being put into a dangerous area.
I don't think that's the rule.
I
don't know.
Do you know what?
Maybe that's what causes so much anger towards football fans, because I don't know the rule, but what I do know is common sense.
Yeah.
And to me, if the rule does allow the ref to give that, that's absolutely ludicrous. If the rule doesn't, what the hell has the ref seen? Because what is Amari Bell meant to do from that position?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone who has ever played football in their life who will look at that and say, that is what I think a handball should be.
And I think ultimately that's like, you're right. That's what fans get frustrated with, is there's no common sense in a lot of these decisions. It's like, okay, yes, technically it is a handball because it's been levered at him from very close range, and technically it's hit his hand. But like you said, it's not as if he's put his hand out to intentionally block the cross. Therefore, like, there has to be some sort of like you said, common sense, like in terms of the decision. But it's given, like, and at the end of the day, like, you have to accept it. Is it a penalty? In my opinion, no. Letter of the law, I actually don't know.
No.
Like, I literally don't know. But then, if you got someone to explain you the handball rule, you'd get about 5 different descriptions.
And probably if you put 5 different refs down in a room, you probably would have a similar kind of outcome. But the penalty was given. Bishop converted the penalty. It felt like to me at that moment that with how Charlton are, look, we struggled to come back from 1-0 down. 2-0 down felt like a real stretch. I think the only way it kind of maybe happened was either a goal before half-time, which I couldn't see how we were going to get that. I felt like Portsmouth were completely and utterly on top of the game. The only hope was probably coming in at half-time, staying at 2-0 and it not getting worse, regrouping in some capacity, and kind of going again and getting that early goal. Going into the second half, obviously, we saw widespread changes. Nathan Jones bringing in, so he had Coventry, Fevrier and Campbell coming on. So clearly he was not happy with the performance of the players, albeit I'm sure had frustrations towards the ref. Second half started, and I thought we looked just as bad. I actually genuinely think of all the performances where we've come out, we've sometimes even shown a 5 minutes and then dropped into our way. But I felt Portsmouth picked up just where they kind of got, and it felt like they just had our number all day.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to pick up on, actually, because we've spoken about how the referees was like handing cards out like confetti today, and he was. But what we did find as well was we had both our wing, and we spoke about this earlier actually. Both our wing backs were on yellow cards from a very early period in the game. And I think what that did was it really hampered our ability to sort of be a bit more aggressive in the defensive part of the wing, especially on the wings. But also those players weren't able to then push up the pitch as much, because if they're sprinting back and they know they can't drag someone back or just give away another silly foul.
I think you can look at that all across the pitch in some regards. Because I think Lloyd Jones got one as well, which meant he couldn't do his kind of harrying that he normally does. That kind of took a big part out of his game there. You had the 2 wing backs. Leeburn had one as well. So Leeburn on the press.
He's a very physical striker.
Striker on the press. And look, I think the difficulty I have towards it is I think we look poor before that. But yeah, 100% that has got to have an impact on the game, because everyone in those positions is not wanting to be the player who gets the red card and completely destroys the game. I am amazed we left that pitch with all 11 players, because I was adamant when I saw that we'd had Clark, Chambers and Leeburn within about 20 minutes. I was adamant, well, someone's getting sent off today. And the ref weirdly then seemed to start to go into a slightly more relaxed.
Well,
I don't know if he felt sorry for us, because at the end of the second half, we were absolutely
Probably, yeah.
clattering their players,
yeah,
and he was just play on.
yeah.
was-
Yeah, it was a weird
Yeah.
turnaround from the ref. Like you said,
Yeah.
maybe he showed a bit of mercy at the end of the game.
Maybe. But the second half, as I say, Portsmouth carried on, were absolutely dominating us. And that boy Devlin popped back up, and this time
criminal defending for that.
it's
third.
criminal defending for giving him the space.
It's a great strike.
It's a beautiful strike. I mean, if that's a Charlton player,
yeah. We've seen, to be fair, we've seen Kerry score some bangers from that sort of distance.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've given him so much time to just line one up, and then Kaminsky, the way he was playing today, was probably never going to save it anyway.
Why do we sometimes? I don't understand this space thing, because why do we sometimes give people all the space in the world? We did it against Millwall. Aziz, we gave him all the space in the world to kind of get crosses in and do this. We've done it with Devlin. We've done it with other teams, but then other games we look like we've been pumped with steroids and are running like 100 mile an hour and closing everything down. I don't. Is that like a fatigue thing of how big? Like, for example, the last 3 games they've been huge. Have we hit just a fatigue point where we go, that's that? Because also Pompey had another game. Pompey had a game at the weekend.
Yeah,
we didn't.
Really
we have
the game against Sheffield United.
Arguably, if energy levels are going to be anywhere, we should have the advantage.
I looked at this game and I thought that, like you said, Portsmouth had played on Saturday against Sheffield United. We played a Wednesday, so we've got quite a big sort of advantage in terms of having a bigger rest. But not only that, they've got the injury crisis as well. So I really saw this as a game where we could sort of really turn the screw and actually get some more points on the board. But like I said at the beginning, like they were just up for it way more than us. Like, and that's what you see. And whether that's a mixture of us being fatigued, as you said, but I think that's a bit of an easy out. I think it actually looked as if we just weren't up for it today. And
I think, and the
really
worst blend of that is we looked really not up for it, and they looked incredibly up for it. And I think that's the perfect blend.
It came down to desire and moments of quality, which
and it even showed off subs. I thought TC today, for example, the amount he backed off in challenges and just got bullied on the ball and didn't just fly his body in. Because the one thing we've always said, if I'm walking away 3-1 today, but all of the lads have put their absolute all in. They've gone in for challenges and they have just been outclassed on the day. It happens in football.
Yeah,
I'm not as bothered, but performances like this can be so frustrating because it just does seem like they've turned up and just not wanted it today.
You know what really does my head in as well is we talked about with Campbell like last week. We were like, oh, it's so good to see him come off the bench and look so up for it. And then we're going back to talking about how he's looking completely off it again. And it's like there really is that sort of like it's like this every week. It's up or down. You don't actually know what version you're going to get with him. And today, you're right. Like he came on and he didn't really look like he give it.
Well, no, he didn't. I don't think he looked like he get. But and I know sometimes with TC that is just his body language. And you see him in kind of interviews. He's just got that kind of
he's very chill
kind of approach
character
to things. But there's certain games where just to say today, like subs were the place where we could have changed.
But actually, let's spin it. February looked very up for it when he came on. He looked dangerous. And
well, that goes on to from there. I thought February, if we were going to have a little bright spark, it was him. He was running at players. He reminds me of that kind of Thierry Small.
He's got very small.
Tanto. It's all that kind of quite erratic. You don't quite know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's going to run at a player, and a couple of times he's just going to trip over the ball. But when he does get it, he does click. And he had, before the goal, he actually had the lovely little kind of cut in. And it reminded me of what TC does really well sometimes. Kind of look like he's going to shoot, hold off, and fizzed it just wide of the post.
Yeah, and also he's small. He used to do that, didn't he? Especially like coming up on the right and whipping it with his left. And that's that. Yeah, it was a good introduction for him, and that's probably the first time I've seen him and thought actually he could be quite a good little weapon actually coming off the bench.
And it wasn't long after that his obviously goal from memory. I think it was a cross kind of coming
drilled in almost,
and then a really nicely taken finish. And I was quite happy for him because do you know what? Poor performances like this, I think the bench should be licking their lips. Because I think the one thing we have got towards any competition at the moment, which I think we have got, when you look at our bench, it is quite strong. There's players who want to come into that squad. And I think when there are players now having off days, I really hope Nathan Jones utilises his squad now to kind of prove points in certain games. And if you're going to go into a game and you're not going to be up for it, I would look at it and go, well, okay, clearly Fevrier is.
Yeah, put him in. He's
Clearly,
good,
we've got
yeah.
Rankin Costello who's absolutely chomping at the bit. So if you're going to have a poor game, we'll bring you in. And I think that's something we've got to see to make sure this competition. Because I think what we saw when all these new signings came in was a bit of a shuffle round, and it was very much, well, no one's kind of space in the team is definite.
Yeah.
And actually, a performance like this has got to be, in my opinion, some kind of lessons kind of given out there to some of the ones who had the poorer performances.
100%. And like, we should be playing players on their performances, because ultimately that's, if you're someone that's looking off your game, you're not, there's no God-given right for you just to sit in the team. So, and to be fair, I do think Jones is quite good at that, in terms of if he thinks somebody's not up to it, he will swap them out for a bit. So we might see that in the next game. Who knows?
Well, I think after the Fevrier goal, it felt like we kind of had a little burst of energy that lasted for about 5-10 minutes.
Did you get a little bit? When it went 2-1, I thought, you know what? Actually, if we got another one, you've seen some weird things happen.
I think I do, but especially this Charlton side, I think I'm always a little bit more reserved because we just don't score that many goals, and as I say, we don't really come back from 1-0's like our kind of maximum. I can't imagine this season we've come from more than one behind.
No.
So I did, but yeah, look, naturally the football fan and you did get a bit excited. We were knocking it around a bit more. They looked a bit rattled by it, and I think we did have a few little moments.
Yeah, we tested
if it had dropped right, but as soon as that wore off after about 10 minutes, the game just fizzled out. They played the management of the game well. We played it poorly.
Yeah.
We kept giving them silly little fouls. They started to get back on top, and realistically, it looked like we had very little creativity there to maybe create any kind of moment, and they were just going to pick us up on the counter. And they had that alley down the left wing, which he's a strange one because he's on loan from Luton.
Yeah.
And he reminded me quite a lot of like TC. I don't think his end product was sensational, but he's that kind of electric.
They had a couple of outlets, didn't they? So when we were pushing forward, they were able to get the ball back up the pitch. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the game just ended up fizzling out, and they managed it well. And fair play to them, because they knew all they needed to do was just keep winning little silly fouls, running the clock down, and that's what happens. And it fizzled.
Yeah, and there's definitely, as I say, there's frustrations towards it as a game. But I think every Charlton fan would be lying if they didn't say that Portsmouth deserved the win.
Oh no, they're 100%.
I think there's some unfortunate circumstances to get there, but we can't rely on that completely. And realistically, the better team did win on the day. We've got to dust ourselves off like we have this season in many other kind of scenarios, and we've got to go into now the next game.
Now it comes down to how do you respond, because that was not a nice performance. So can we now, like you said, dust ourselves off and go again, because we need to pick up points.
And can I also say, before we move on to the kind of individual performances, the one that really made me laugh was I think this might be the first time, whether it's the first time for them, but seeing Caballero, who's on loan from Santos, playing for Portsmouth. That is the most I know we've discussed recently of like kind of footy man out there signings, but that, when they said that, I just put a smile on my face. I don't know why. It's a very bizarre,
going from like Rio to the south coast.
Yeah, it's a Fratton Park. it's an interesting one, but that just made me laugh. But let's go into those individual performances then. I think overall it was, we've kind of highlighted it's a pretty poor game overall. We'll start on the negatives, and then we'll move on to what might surprise some people, but some positives, because I do think
there were a couple
of little shining lights. But starting off with the negatives, probably the easiest one. We've already gone over him a little bit, but Thomas Kaminski wasn't a good game. I thought we've only really discussed around his clanger, but I thought overall in the whole game, albeit he didn't have that many saves to make, I thought his distribution was really poor again today. The mistake, just a few bits and pieces. I just thought it was a poor game.
It was one that obviously the big glaring error was obviously like what tainted him the most today. But you're right, like his distribution, is sort of his ability to sort of, I thought actually he had a few where he just lumped the ball too long into their keeper's hands, and what that does, it just completely just brings the tempo back to Pompey getting back on the ball. It doesn't allow us to get a foothold, which we struggled with all day, but he contributed to that. The one thing I will say with Kaminski is I've seen some stuff since the game's finished, and people saying, "Oh, we need to get Mannion," and I hear it every time he has a sort of off game. But we have to remind ourselves he's got 11 clean sheets this season, and I know I'm not gonna be the one to say they were all down to him because he's had a really good back line in front of him this season in a lot of games. But he's kept us in games, and not long ago, like QPR,
Right in the last
right
minute.
in the last minute, kept us in. He's made some huge saves throughout the season. The frustrating thing with Kaminsky is he does blow a bit hot and cold, which
Yeah, I think he does, and I also think the thing I struggle with. So I don't understand this whole Mannion. I think sometimes you see players with rose tinted goggles sometimes as to what they are. Mannion had his flaws. There was a
yeah,
reason he was going between him and Maynard Bruin. Yes, he had a brilliant end to last season in League One, but that doesn't mean he's going to step into a championship
no,
squad and he's going to
big
be the
step up.
answer to this, that, the other.
Mm.
And I think sometimes when certain players do have clangers or have bad times, you see another player glorified in a way that maybe they don't quite deserve. I always think we kind of did that a little bit with Rob Apter.
Yeah,
I think Apter's a very talented potential,
mm.
but he's not the absolute golden answer that's going to turn our season
Yeah.
around. I think with Kaminsky, where my not frustration, I agree. I think he probably over the course of the season, he's a decent championship goalkeeper. I think my only disappointment comes when we signed him is I probably thought he was going to be a bit better than what he is, and I thought we'd signed a keeper that potentially we could have for 2, 3, 4 years,
Yeah,
and that's a position we're not looking at again.
yeah.
With Kaminsky, he probably has underwhelmed me with what he offers, but I think what he is good at is enough for what we need at the moment.
I think-
and he will, those real key moments like the QPR game,
Mm.
that could be the difference between us staying up. Or
Yeah, 100%. They're massive moments in games. But today, the frustration is that goal comes at a time in a game where that really swings the momentum massively. Like you said, actually, that beginning sort of 15 minutes, we didn't look too bad. When the goal goes in, that completely shifts the atmosphere and the way that the game then flows.
I think a big part of that result does come down to that moment.
Yeah, 100%.
100%, because we know we seem to have quite a fragile response to conceding and how to respond to it and all of those things. And I think we set up a game plan not to particularly have to deal with that scenario. So 100% it has. But I think when with Kaminsky, is he going to gain us more points over a season than what he loses us? To me, yeah, I think
so.
he is. So
I think so.
it's frustrating, and I think it's one that he will not be sleeping well tonight.
No.
But I'm with you. I don't get on board to this whole. I don't understand why people think that Mannion's we've got this Premier League quality keeper in the background. I think Mannion's a very capable
But
keeper.
Mannion, if he's in the sticks, he's going to have errors. Like that's goalkeeping for you, and also it's highlighted massively when goalkeepers make an error because it obviously ends up in a goal. So we've got to give him a little bit of leeway, and let's balance it out over the whole season. You're right. I think he'll gain us more points than he loses us points. So.
Well, let's hope he leaves that one in the past and moves on to the next game as a worldie, because I think we might need it in some ways. But let's move on to the next one. I think someone we have been incredibly complimentary of since he's joined the club. Someone who we feel's brought a bit of a breath of fresh air, leadership, and I thought all of those things were missing today from his performance, and that's Connor Cody.
Yeah, I think he just. I think I said to you actually earlier, like I didn't actually really notice him much in the game, which says a lot because in that position he's playing, you should be noticing him sort of getting in on the ball, getting himself up against their attackers. Sorry.
I also think he really struggled with some of the tracking as well. He looked quite kind of like lead feet, and when they were playing it quite quickly around him, he was really getting caught out of position quite badly. My negative to him, because I know I was probably more pushing this one than you probably were today, but for me, the other big thing was in a game where we do struggle so much with mental fragility when we concede. I think players like that have been brought in to kind of pick the team back up and show some leadership.
Yeah.
And I didn't think we saw that really at all from him today. I didn't notice him as a voice as much as he has been. And the one thing you don't want from a player, it's all well and good being the voice when you're 0-0 or you're winning and this whole rallying cry. Sometimes that voice is just as important when we're doing badly. And I think sometimes that's where Doc can sometimes go missing as well. I think those kind of players they needed to step up today, and I'm not sure 100% they did. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but that was my gut feeling on it. I just saw it as an overall.
No, but I
poor.
think Nathan Jones has been pretty honest in the fact that he's brought Cody in as to be a leader and to be someone with experience, someone that has a voice. And actually, we saw that in the first 3 games he's been in. We didn't concede a goal in those games, so he's obviously managed to get a grip of everyone. And I said to you before, like I noticed that he's in the ear of a lot of players when he's enduring the game and stuff like that, which is good to see. But today it just felt like no one really got a grip of the game, and he's one that you look to first of all to really try and do that. And maybe actually that's somewhere where we sort of fell down a little bit today, and it didn't ever feel like we really took the game by the scruff of the neck, which we needed to do. But yeah, he's also, that's a criticism I think Wrexham fans probably had of him, is that he sometimes can be run ragged a little bit because he's getting on a bit. And
well, I think that's probably where we look at him as whether he's. I think he's the option. He's the perfect player we probably need at the moment for going into a relegation scrap this season. Is he? I've seen a few people online saying, "Oh, we need to try and get him in the summer."
Sign him.
I'm not saying that there's not a potential there that he could be an all right signing, but I think especially where we're looking in this holding mid role, he's probably not the exact answer long term, and there is going to be games he goes up and down. I do still think with him as well, he is probably still match fitness, played quite a few games in a row, a bit leggy, which a lot of the team looked like today. But I thought overall, for me, I was watching him quite closely.
It wasn't his finest.
I thought it was quite a noticeably poor performance. Going on to the third and final one, I think we both felt this could probably go to a few players. I thought Leeburn looked a bit poor today. Doc seemed... He worked hard, but I thought he once again was... I thought there was definitely moments where it highlighted that technical side, which we've said a few times. TC, as a sub, I thought he had a pretty poor performance, but I think there was one player that I felt more disappointed for similar reasons to Cody, and that's Sonny Carey. And I feel this is one that maybe has dropped into a kind of few performances of late, where he does just maybe look... I don't know if it's tiredness of the way the kind of season's gone. He spent a bit of time outside.
I was just about to say, we had a few games where we were like, oh, is he injured? Like,
it's a bit of a confidence thing, maybe, and you're going to expect this from players, especially coming up from League One. They're going to go through peaks and troughs, and he has still had moments in all these games we're talking. But today, once again, I felt it was a game where maybe the criticism could come that what were we feeding to him? It was relative scraps of flick-ons and this, that, the other. But if we're playing that way, play to it.
Do you know what?
At least make a run in behind at some point.
Yeah.
We've got Harry Clark in the first minute who can get in behind. Why are we not seeing at any point Sonny Carey going, I don't like this, but let's make something of a bad scenario? And I just felt it was a bit whiny, a bit...
The thing
his head went a bit towards the end of the game.
Carey as well is that he is... When we're not playing well and we're not looking like we've got much of an outlet, he is the one you look to. He's the one that we've always had there as an option to really dribble the ball up the pitch and get up the pitch. He did it a few times today, but it was almost one of those where he'd get himself into that sort of 10 position, dribble himself to the edge of the box, but then there wasn't much going on after that.
I also think he massively struggled against Adams and Pack. I thought Adams and Pack in that holding mid roles were, I thought, brilliant today. I thought Pack especially. I thought Ebu Adams is that just everywhere physical beast, and Pack is that kind of slightly more technical, getting on the ball. To me, I looked at those two, and we discussed points in the season of needing that kind of destroyer centre mid who's just an absolute beast and a more technical one. I looked at those two, and as much as I'm sure there's games where they don't play as well and play better, I looked at them and thought that's kind of what we're missing in that midfield, that dynamic and that balance between kind of...
But I think that's where sometimes you can cut Carey a little bit of slack, because really the creativity in the middle of the park has been pretty non-existent throughout the year. So if we're going to go down that avenue, then you're going to say, well, actually a lot of the chances Carey's created have been through his own doing, and maybe when he's not on it you notice it more because he's having to do a lot of work himself. That's what I think about him as well, is like the little runs and dribbles he goes on, he creates those chances for himself a lot of the time. So that's what I mean, is when we're not playing well as a team, maybe if he's not on it, it's really noticeable, because that's really one of our only outlets.
Well, also, if you're not giving him that many chances, I suppose the other argument can be when you're only touching the ball 3 or 4 times in an attacking sense in a game, it's hard to get that rhythm of picking up the ball and kind of getting those first few just to test it.
But the other thing
I just thought it was a poor performance.
No, it definitely was, and it's warranted, and like he was noticeably off it today. But the one thing I do give Carey every time is he is one of the only ones in that middle that really looks to push the ball forward. He is our one man that gets on the ball and dribbles it. So
he's integral. I mean, if we don't have a player like that,
he's massive in the team.
If we have another kind of,
we'd be in big
if we have another destroyer of a centre mid or whatever, we'd just be. It really would be the route one. He's the only. I think he's the only player in our squad who starts to slightly bring us away from route one. That we're not just the absolute kind of epitome of route one. He has somewhat in a highlight reel over the season. People will say, "Oh, they didn't just they did something else as well." So but yeah, no. As I say, I think it's one that. Overall, a lot of poor performances in there. I think even as we said over the defensive unit, there was players not looking quite right.
Jones, I don't think had his best game.
I thought he won a lot of headers like he always does. But
yeah.
Well, let's move on to the positives because I do think there was two players that can walk away today with that more positive side. One is one that just every week seems to be having this conversation. I'm so glad. One, that we signed him, and secondly, that I think he's proving a lot of the people who maybe question why we were bringing him in so wrong, and that's Lyndon Dykes. I think once again, just such a clever, proper performance, and for me, the flick-on's brilliant.
Yeah,
the intelligence, the running in and pressing all the time, never really giving up, always leaving his heart on the pitch, but also just the amount of foul. He knew the defenders, and when we discuss about Pompey playing us like a fiddle, really, is that they were winning free kicks left, right, and centre of us pushing into them. The only player we had all day who played the game back at the ref was Lyndon Dykes.
Yeah,
he had, I think it was Ogilvy, or that bald guy, a bald guy at centre back who just kept running into him. He was just winning. He had his number. He was winning fouls in dangerous positions, meaning we could get it in the box. And I just think he's, as I say, I just more frustrated once again. He had Leeburn against him, who wasn't really having the greatest of game and wasn't moving into that space. I just want him to have an informed striker against him, or alongside him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's been such a breath of fresh air in that top of the pitch because, like you said, he is such a nuisance. But not only that, he's like very clever in the way he plays. And
until he's played a lot of years at Championship level.
Yeah, and he knows how to play those sort of defenders who are at times going to be clumsy and clatter into the back of him. And he just knows, like you said, to back in a little bit, give the ref no chance but to give the foul. And on top of that, he wins so many flick-ons, and they're quality flick-ons.
Well, he's got there's a reason why he's got now 3 assists for this season, and I think that's probably. I'm not going to lie. I think like our goal scoring, I can't imagine our assist levels are very high, and he's probably up there.
He did get the. He was the one that played.
But he did today. But I'm saying his assists are probably high. Like getting up towards the highest in the club.
Yeah, they will be.
Because I can't imagine we've had many who are particularly. I mean, the goal scoring levels are incredibly low, so the assist levels are. It's hand in hand.
No, but you're right. Like he's definitely worth a mention in terms of like a standout and somebody that actually, even when we're not playing that well as a team, he will just dig in, and that is what he brings.
Well, if everyone in the team had the mentality he did today, it'd probably be a very different game. Not that we wouldn't lose, but I think a lot of Charlton fans will be walking away kind of very proud. And it's still always to this day, and I think it will for the rest of the season, put a smile on my face just seeing the number 99.
Yeah, that's superb for me.
It's sensational. But well, let's move on to the final one, and it was off the bench. I think someone as in a similar vein, one that was kind of scoffed at as a signing, and one that we all kind of laughed at and raised many an eyebrow. But I thought, to be fair, was it his debut or home
he's
debut?
Come off the bench before, but this was probably his longest stint.
Yes, but definitely, I think it is definitely his home debut today. Showed a bit of fight, showed a bit of kind of passion, and that's Fevrier.
Yeah, really, really good actually. And actually, he brought something that we didn't have in the first half, which was a bit of sort of desire to sort of dribble at people, pace, strength as well. He's a big boy, like he's stocky, but also to actually get on the ball and actually have a shot on target, have a shot at goal. I mean, he was very close to having a shot on target. It whipped past the post, the one where he cut inside, but he brought an energy which we were lacking big time,
and I think you can see why. As the deal kind of goes, you've kind of taken a striker in Tanto who's not really a winger, and you've kind of replaced him with a very much like for like, but more of a winger. And you can kind of see how that move. I don't know if I look at him and think he's a Championship level player. probably not. I
No.
don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
enough
it's hard
about
to
him,
tell,
and he's still quite young, I think.
Mm.
But the one thing I can see is if we're going to replace Tanto in the squad, to put that in just as another option when things aren't quite going right, or when you need that kind of burst of pace. It seems like he could probably do a job and will be a bit player in the season. But I thought, yeah, he's done himself no harm today
No.
in any way.
100%. And also he is somebody, like you said, that people criticised when he first got announced as coming in. But we have to remember he is only a loan as well.
Yeah.
So he's there to sort of prove himself, and actually he showed that today, that he was very much up for the fight, and actually got his goal, which you mentioned was a very tidy finish, actually.
Well, I also think with him, it also opens up just another option of when you look at our whole squad, really, we've only really got Campbell and Fevrier there who have any form of electric pace.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think you've got Sonny Carey who's got a burst of pace, and we said we're surprised, but he's not that electric side of things. And I think sometimes it does, no matter the quality of the player, sometimes you've seen it over the years. Corey Blackett-Taylor
Brings that danger, doesn't it?
Corey Blackett-Taylor wasn't the most sensational footballer, but that
No.
explosive pace.
Dangerous.
Tanto, there's a reason why we looked at him. I think that has that. TC, Thierry Small, all of them fit a very similar mould of technically a bit iffy, but that electric pace can cause problems at any level.
Yeah, 100%. It's something that and also it gets fans off their seats. Like they're what we want to see, is those players that are gonna really like sort of get defenders running backwards and look dangerous. And he did that quite a few times today. So he's a good option to have off the bench, and if he can continue to sort of be that danger man, then he could become quite an important sort of impact sub. But yeah, that was definitely a bright spark in a game that had very little sparks whatsoever.
It did, yeah. And I think there was probably a big conglomerate of Kenyan fans who were sitting there waiting for Zashenje to make his debut. He hasn't quite made it there yet. I think we've seen him warm up a few times. We saw him warm up in the last game. I think there were talks of him coming on today, but my God, I think we'll be able to hear the celebrations from here, I think, when he does eventually make the pitch. But it'll be interesting, because I think with him, it's probably one where the first sign of an injury, maybe an Amari Bell injury, because I think we've talked about that athleticism being a big thing that we miss, that maybe that will be the kind of stage.
Just so, like, obviously we've seen nothing of him yet, but from the highlights that I saw, he's one of those sort of defenders that actually dribbles up the pitch a little bit. So it will be quite good to see what he can bring eventually when he gets his chance.
Do you think, I think my gut feeling is, I think we need to be probably in a position this season where, and this isn't me looking too far ahead, but if we can get to a position where we feel safe, there's a few players probably in that squad that we need to start testing out, probably looking forward to next season, and what's going to work, what's not, where do we need to invest, where do we need to do that. And I think players like that, maybe you're going to see a little bit more of other players like Rankin Costello stepping in a little bit more frequently as to where the squad kind of goes for next year. And hopefully that is a conversation and something we are doing, because we are still in a very good position. And I think that's probably where his chance is going to come.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think hopefully, like you said, if we can hit that sort of magic 50-point mark where we sort of feel comfortable that we're going to stay up, let's give those players a bit of a game run out, and sort of, we've got nothing to lose, have we? Like you said, we'll start to then see what we've got on our hands and what we can start building from next summer. So yeah, it could be quite interesting that if we can reach that stage.
Yeah.
Hopefully we do.
Well, we had, so that's kind of it, looking over the Pompey game. As I said, we've said this a few times this season, but one really to forget. And hopefully, if you can write it off and forget about it and move on, and really follow it up with a different performance, that's the main thing. We did pop out a tweet on X just to see really what your guys' thoughts were on the game. I think very much a lot of it would have mirrored a lot of what we discussed today, but I thought there was a couple of kind of
we had some interesting sort of comments on the game. So we had a few in at Rob the Grass. He's but don't get the 5 at the back and 2 defensive midfielders in a home game. And actually that's something that we sort of brought up at the start. I think when you look at that starting lineup, it's quite negative considering we're at home and we've got that opportunity.
That's the biggest thing to it, the home game. And I think there's certain games where when we went into, I think the first time we saw what we're seeing now was against Leicester away. And at the time, they weren't maybe as I think they were in turmoil, but maybe not as much.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen other games where maybe it makes more sense. But today definitely felt like it needed to be one where we're going to show some aggression, show a bit of fight towards it. And I think even with it, doing those two holding mids, which we've been very complimentary of over weeks, so it's hard to be too critical. But I think if you are going to do that, then you need to see TC up with Dykes to show some form of where we're going to take the game to him. But it felt like all across the pitch, that kind of playing Cody and Doc at home in centre mid probably summed up our approach to it.
Yeah,
the whole lot.
And to be fair, like my gripe isn't necessarily with the 5 at the back, because essentially we're playing 2 wing backs, so they're able to push up more, especially now they're in the natural positions. The 2 holding mids is a problem for me, because I've been a massive sort of voice for the fact that we are desperately missing creativity in the middle. And what 2 defensive mids does, it makes it almost impossible then to have that sort of creativity in the middle, because those defensive mids, they're really there to just break the play up. Doc is there, that's maybe a little bit more able to push the ball forward, but his passing's not there. Like, he's not the one.
It's marginal, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you could argue that he's able to push the ball out of the pitch a bit, but when he gets to a certain part of the pitch, you're not expecting a nice little through ball. So he just hasn't got that in his locker. So I agree. I think it's a negative setup in a home game where we should have been pushing forwards and getting a foothold on the game early.
I think I give just the allowance, as long as we stay up this season, I give allowance to a lot of these things. I think the longer it goes on into next season, for example, if we do stay up
with a higher quality squad,
we have to be going in and changing those kind of approaches, because maybe at the moment there is the feeling of this is the way we have to do it. And I think one of the things that maybe is underestimated towards this is Jones has obviously gone out to watch Pompey. My understanding is, as much as they lost against Sheffield United, and I think they lost against Preston, then before that they've won 2 of their last 3. In both the Preston and the Sheffield United game, I think they were very good.
I watched the Sheffield game, and actually they were bloody unlucky.
And I think maybe we were showing them probably too much respect, but respect that clearly when we watch them today, they maybe have earned a little bit off teams. I still think we should have been a slightly different approach, but I think maybe we're underestimating what that game kind of was. Maybe we were, maybe as fans, but maybe as whatever, we were maybe belittling Portsmouth to a certain extent. Maybe we didn't give them as much respect as...
Yeah, maybe.
Then we gave them respect in the game. We got absolutely tanked. So
we did. We've got another one that's come in. Chris has put, all collapsed after going 1-0 down. Clark shouldn't be let off for missing a sitter, but the ref and Kaminsky confirmed the result. We just have no ideas how to take a game to a team when we go behind, and we brought that up already.
I think we've covered over that, and I think it is a huge problem of ours, because I think every Charlton fan, when they're watching a game, look, there's so many factors, but there's factors in each game where we've had the advantage of some referee decisions over the kind of coming weeks. We will have games where it goes against us, and at 1-0, yes, you kind of look at it and think, okay, like, we should still, after that mistake from Kaminsky, after a referee mistake, we shouldn't feel like we're completely and utterly out of the game. But I think most Charlton fans do. At 1-0, I feel 90% sure we're probably not going to get back into it. 2-0, I'm 99.9% sure. It's like, and now, whenever I watch it, and having that both happen within about half an hour, it's gut wrenching.
Well, you've got a tough watch for the next 45
minutes. Well,
60.
Well, I've got a newborn also crying in the corner. I thought it was my good luck charm so far, but...
No, it's run out now. It was always going to run out, to be fair. No, it's true. Like, I think it's really difficult, because in the game, you feel as if you've always got that opportunity to get back into it, but we're so poor at creating chances. And that's what I think, that's why we get so negative when we go 1 down, because we haven't seen that sort of creativity this season where we think, oh yeah, we're going to get loads of chances to get back into it.
But I also think we have a really weak mindset when we go behind sometimes. I think we go really soft after, and I think after we've just conceded, a lot of the time it's, can we survive the next 5 to 10 minutes without conceding again? Because we've seen ourselves free fall in certain games. I think the Southampton game at home was the worst example of that. But we saw it at Stoke away, which I know was a bit freak goals, but we do have that moment of conceding is like such a huge thing. And our biggest successes this season have been by grinding games out and probably picking up that goal and holding on to it, or scoring in the 70th, 80th, 90th minute. We've got a real problem there, and I think it's something we've really got to Fine.
That's something we've got to address in the summer. We've got to get creativity in the team to actually start getting more chances in games.
I agree.
And the final one was DJR Disco has sent in horrific goalkeeping and bad penalty from the ref. Didn't help, but more a worry was Portsmouth were up for it. We were not, and still a lack of creativity in the midfield. We've just gone over. And having 2 target men does not work and not good with a tough game on Saturday. FFS.
Well, I think that's probably the final one that we don't have to put any more words on. I think it sums up the game incredibly well.
It does, yeah.
And I think on that note, let's move forward to the next game. So it's not going to be an easy one. So Saturday we've got a 3:00 kickoff, and it will be going to Southampton away.
Yeah.
Not a place that we have fond. Well, I say not a place, not a team we have fond memories of this season, because the last time was when they absolutely dismantled us and embarrassed us.
Is that like 4 goals in like
30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that? I think they might have been 5-0 up at half
They
time.
haven't got Finazaz anymore. I think he's gone. Is he still there? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't think they've got a lot of good players. Whether he's there or not, I think it's
He might actually still be there.
The positive, I think, is at Southampton. You can see they're in really, really bad form. They've drawn against Portsmouth, but then 2-0 win against Stoke away, 1-0 win against Watford at home, 4-3 win against Leicester away, 2-1 win against Leicester at home in the Cup at the weekend. But yeah, they're a team in reasonably good form.
Yeah. I
Tough
think
place to go.
I think it's one of Nathan Jones' old clubs again, isn't it? So he will obviously be well up for it, especially going to their ground. But we are painfully bad this season against teams that can play the ball around and play the ball, especially in the middle of the park. Southampton definitely fall into that category. I think we said that's why we got tore apart in that game against them at the Valley, because we just allowed them to just play through us. And if we do that there, we're going to get smashed again. And I think after today, I'm concerned, because a team like Portsmouth, who are actually not in good form, were still able to sort of fizz the ball around in the middle and make us look a bit silly. So we've got to really sort of sort ourselves out in the space of a few days. And I think there might have to be some rotation in the team as well. I'd like to see a few changes, maybe freshen it up, give maybe a few players like Rankin Costello, I wouldn't mind seeing, given a bit of a game time to really try and freshen it up.
I still want to see Rankin Costello, Coventry, and Carey. I just want to see it once all season, because I said it was a shoo-in that we were going to get it within about 3 or 4 games, and I think we're now 10 games further, and we've not seen it. And I think potentially 100% there. I think Cody needs a rest in there.
I was just about to say, we mentioned about Cody. He's one that you could see getting rotated out, and actually that could be his Costello's chance to actually get in.
I think we've got to find a balancing act there, though, because I think the one thing we said is in those moments, I think leadership was a big thing.
Yeah.
And the one thing we don't want to go into that game is then going back into that kind of issue of where we were. I think the interesting thing I'd find with that is just playing with that Coventry, Rankin Costello and Carey with 2 proper wing backs now.
Yeah, could be
a very interesting one. I think it does show a bit more of an attacking outlet. I think Rankin Costello's more likely to want to pick up the ball and throw some passes out.
Yeah.
That might allow Carey some freedom.
It'd be a more expansive team, wouldn't it, in the way that we sort of approach the game. And actually, if we're going to come up against a team that we know are going to try and play through us, let's try and maybe do that back. Because if we just set up to really put our players behind the ball, I think it could get quite nasty like it did in the last one.
Do you think, probably looking at that game then, I think you've got to look at it and say a point there.
A point would be fantastic.
Point's what we're probably going for in a best case. And look, there's always a chance. I think we've always got to look at, for example, we beat Ipswich 3-0 away. That was a game where they absolutely dominated us for a good chunk, and then we just had this purple patch in the game where we took it away. There's always that freak side of what we could do, but I think we've got to be looking at that and saying, point, hopefully just a more kind of positive performance, expansive performance, taking us into the West Brom game after that, which is probably the biggest game. I'd say up there, probably today.
Yeah,
it's probably our biggest one coming up. But what I would say is Pompey are a team who I'd say are turning form.
West Brom are properly in the doldrums.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be one we've got to be looking for, kind of going for the throat, because between these 2 games, we have a potential. If someone like, for example, Leicester doesn't pick up in the next couple of games, we could be starting to look at kind of 10-point gaps between us and the relegation.
We're still 7 after tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to that because I think there's the Southampton game. So it's not too much to say. Just please, Charlton, don't embarrass us again. But we'll look up at the final one being that league table. So yeah, it's still that 7-point gap. I think when you're looking at it, it's very much. It's kind of dragged. It's dragged Pompey closer to us. They've got the game in hand. I think it's starting to show that there are some teams who Blackburn obviously picked up a result, but teams have got to be careful because there is.
So this weekend, West Brom have got Coventry at home. All right, so that's a very tough game for them. Leicester have got Stoke away, which is always a bit of a nasty one. Oxford have got Middlesbrough away, and Pompey have got Millwall away. So and obviously we got Southampton, which is a tough fixture. But
I think I look at Oxford. So, for example, I always look at not of whether Oxford are going to get relegated or not, whether we've got two teams. Okay, you take Sheffield Wednesday out.
Yeah.
We've got two teams who have got to be below us.
Yeah.
Now, Oxford, we've got an 11-point lead on. Now, do I think Oxford are going to gain that on us? No, I don't. More fool me for saying that, and you can clip it all up at the end of the season, but I really don't. So we've just got to we've just got to outperform one team. And for me at the moment, it seems like probably Leicester, West Brom, Blackburn are the three that you're probably looking at as, are those teams going to outperform us? Now, if in those next two games, for example, Leicester do not pick up any points and we can pick up 3 points, as I say, we're sitting 10 points above them.
Yeah.
The only worry I have towards it is I don't like the fact like a team like Leicester are the team who are
a
bit like we saw with
so
Norwich.
much quality.
We saw them being in the doldrums, get a new manager in, and they have
Do you know
quality.
That's why, weirdly, as Blackburn have just brought in the Northern Ireland manager. I can't remember his name now, but he's just come in. So they've got that manager bounce. They beat QPR the weekend. So they all of a sudden are looking like they might start picking up points. But West Brom, for me, are the one that look like they could be in trouble.
They've got the new have they got a new manager?
Mason went.
Mason went.
Yeah, I can't remember who they got in. No,
nothing's
they have got
really turned. Yeah.
No, and one other thing is, like you said, we've got them coming up after Southampton. So if we can beat them, that is just, one, it's keeping them right down there, but two, it's just keeping them on that spiral, because that's what happens. You usually have one team that just completely spirals, especially around this time of the year, and West Brom are looking like they could be that team. So it's going to be really interesting.
West Brom have brought in Eric Ramsey.
Yeah, I've not heard anything about that.
He was Swansea City under 18 and then Minnesota United for 2 years.
That's flown under the radar, that is, isn't it, to be fair?
That can't be interim. That must be the man. I have to admit, it's one I hadn't kept a close eye on. I was just enjoying seeing them free fall down the table. I hadn't really taken too close a look as to why, but
no, so
34.
He's obviously like an up-and-coming coach or that sort of thing. But yeah, interesting. I mean,
I think they're the ones. Them and Blackburn, to me, I don't know. Blackburn always, even though they have these little new manager bound and this, that, the other, Blackburn always seem to me that they're going to be teetering around it towards the end. Albeit, maybe we'll be proved wrong on that. But
yeah, let's see what we can do. I mean, we realistically need 3 to 4 wins to be all right.
I've just accidentally clicked on the Millwall Charlton 4-0 loss. So on that one, not one I wanted to see again. So on that one, I think that's a good place to end it. We'll see you again. Obviously, we'll be doing the episode Saturday evening. Come on, Charlton, please. Let's just not 5-0. And we will hopefully see you on the next one.